Hello everyone, today we will talk about bridge. Everyone thought that today was the happiest day of their lives. The lights were sparkling all over the hall, the melodious music echoed in the space filled with fresh flowers and scented candles. The beautiful bride in a pure white dress, standing hand in hand with the elegant groom, a seemingly perfect image for a happy ending of a 5-year love affair. But the horror happened right when they were about to say their vows. The door of the hall suddenly opened. A woman in black, her hair messy, her face panicked, rushed in as if running from hell. She screamed, her voice coming from a burning throat. "Stop! The bride is my real daughter." The entire hall fell silent for 3 deadly seconds. The resounding sound of that sentence seemed to tear the sacred air apart, shattering in the eyes of the trembling bride and the petrified groom. The guests were bewildered, the glasses fell to the floor and broke. All eyes were on the woman, who was crying, kneeling, struggling between madness and despair. No one understood what was happening. No one believed their ears. As for the groom, he could only look at the girl he was about to marry, the girl he loved with all his youth, and then suddenly realized that the invisible hole opening up under his feet was blood. Everything was spinning like a whirlwind. Immediately after that, in the private room, everyone tried to calm down and find out. The girl, Vi, was still crying silently. The strange woman was separated to talk to the groom's mother, Mrs. Tao, a powerful woman, respected by many people in the area. She still tried to stay calm, but her eyes flashed with fear. Something inside her was being torn apart. The groom, Quan, still did not believe it. He shouted, "No! Impossible! Vi is the person I love. My wife. How can you say she is your daughter?" The woman, her name is DM, sobbed as she recounted. 25 years ago, she gave birth to a daughter at the provincial hospital. The baby was kidnapped less than 24 hours after birth in the middle of a rainy night. The police, the hospital, and the whole town were involved, but no one could find any trace of her. She almost went crazy. Her husband, unable to bear the shock, had disappeared. And then, a week ago, a stranger sent her a letter, along with a DNA test. The letter simply stated, "Your daughter is not dead. She is about to marry her own blood brother. Stop her, before it's too late." The test paper matched perfectly. The name on the paper was Vu Ti, the girl who was about to marry the man who, logically, was her biological brother. It didn't stop there. When Mrs. Tao, the groom's mother, picked up the test results, her face turned pale. She trembled, then suddenly knelt down in front of Vi. "I'm sorry. Vi. I knew you weren't the child of the woman who raised you. I knew that, for a long time." Vi could no longer stand. She collapsed, sobbing. Kwam was also stunned. He didn't understand, couldn't accept it. Before his eyes, everything collapsed. The person he loved. The wife he planned to marry. It was his own sister. 25 years ago. A night of heavy rain. The provincial hospital had a power outage. A nurse left the delivery room to check the medicine warehouse. When she returned, the crib by the window was empty. The newborn baby, Mrs. DM's child, was gone. All that remained was a small blood stain on the newborn bracelet that fell on the ground. From then on, Mrs. DM lived like a soulless corpse. She followed every clue, every orphan brought to the neighboring areas, but none of them were her children. The police concluded the baby might have died. But the mother's heart never believed that. Back to the present. Another shocking secret was revealed. That DNA test paper was not only sent to Mrs. DM. But 3 days ago, an unnamed envelope, containing an exact copy, was also placed in front of the groom Kwan's house. Mrs. Tao opened it. And she chose to remain silent. I know everything. But I cannot let this wedding stop." Mrs. Tao's voice rang out, like an echo from hell. "I lost my daughter years ago. I thought Vi was destined to be with me. I didn't dare believe it, didn't want to believe it. I just wished it wasn't true." The whole hall stopped breathing. And then, the name of the bride's biological father, who had lost his child 25 years ago, was called. Mr. Min, the missing bride's father, is also Kwan's father, the groom. When the DNA test paper was swapped, the truth was deliberately hidden, but suddenly exposed. Mrs. Tao clutched the edge of her skirt, her hands trembling nonstop. No one noticed, in the corner of her eyes, was a tear that had dried for a long time. The DNA test paper that Mrs. DM has is not the only one. 3 days ago, I also received a copy. The whole room fell silent. Mrs. Tao took a deep breath. She remembered every moment, every second, when she opened that nameless brown envelope. When her eyes met the words written on the result. Result, gene match with Mrs. DM, 99.99%. Relationship, biological mother. At that moment, her heart seemed to stop beating. But instead of informing her son right away, she quietly put it in a drawer, locked it, like locking away the nightmares of 25 years ago. Because she knew, if this truth was revealed, then everything she had worked so hard to build, would collapse. Who sent the anonymous letter to both sides? What did he know? Why did he choose the wedding day to ignite? In the midst of the chaos, Vi suddenly shouted. So who? Who sent the test results? Who is behind this? Who knows the family secret better than the family members? No one had an answer. But at that moment, the groom Kwan suddenly stood up, his eyes flashing with a ray of light. It's impossible. Unless. He rushed out, going straight to his car, where the dash cam was still running. He remembered, 3 days ago, there was a strange man in a gray coat, standing near his gate for a long time. When he opened the camera to review, that face appeared clearly. It was Mr. Long, his father's former assistant. He was fired without reason 10 years ago. He knew every corner of the family. And he also witnessed a shocking secret that Kwan himself did not know. Kwan's father, a man who had been strict and upright all his life, was the one who had transacted a newborn baby years ago. Who was the girl's biological mother? Why was her baby switched 25 years ago? Who took the baby and what did they do with it? Back to the past. A fateful rainy night 25 years ago. A young midwife, under pressure from debt, agreed to do a sinful thing, switch a newborn baby to sell the baby to a wealthy and fertile family. Mrs. DM, who was exhausted after giving birth, had no idea that the baby the nurse took to bathe had never returned. Meanwhile, in another delivery room, Mr. Min's wife, Kwan's father, gave birth prematurely and the baby did not survive. In pain and despair, Mr. Min decided to do everything to keep the family intact. And then, Vi's fate was swapped right from the cradle. When Vi turned 6 years old, Mrs. Tao, Vi's adoptive mother, accidentally discovered something strange. The girl's blood type did not match hers and Mr. Min's. Her womanly instinct made her suspicious. She secretly did a test, and the results confirmed Vi was not their biological child. She confronted her husband, Mr. Min. After a moment of silence, he admitted everything. I couldn't bear losing my child. And I couldn't let you fall apart. I did something wrong. But for the sake of the family, I switched a newborn baby. Mrs. Tao collapsed. But she chose to remain silent. Because in her heart, Vi grew up with her love. She couldn't bear to let the girl know that she was a swapped child. She didn't want to ruin everything. But she didn't expect fate would be so cruel that, 25 years later, the girl would fall in love with her half-brother. The night before the wedding, Mrs. Tao walked into her private office. She opened the cabinet and took out the DNA test paper. Her eyes blurred. Then she printed out a new copy, a copy with the information edited. Result, no blood relationship. She put the fake copy in an envelope, hiding the original. She planned, after the wedding, to let Vi and Kwan travel for a while. In the meantime, she would find a way to deal with the real paper, quietly burying everything. But she didn't expect. There was another person, the one she and Mr. Min had pushed out of their lives, who had been following every move. It was Mr. Long, the former assistant, who secretly sent a copy of the original paper to both Mrs. DM and left it in front of Kwan's house. He did not do it out of hatred, but because he had witnessed Mr. Min's cold-blooded hand in trading children for power. He could not let the truth be buried. The situation was reversed. The fairy tale wedding had turned into a punishment ceremony. Vi kept crying. Quan knelt before her. I don't care. I love you, Vi. I can't lose you. But Vi shook her head. In those eyes was an extreme pain. A whole world collapsed beyond repair. We can't go back forever. The surprise, the late father's will was hidden for many years, and now it was revealed. The villa was filled with heavy silence. After the broken wedding, the relatives were as exhausted as shadows. A few days later, Mrs. Tao sat alone in her late husband's office, Mr. Min. She couldn't sleep. The haunting memories of the wedding, Vi's crying, Quan's desperate eyes, were like knives cutting into her heart. In a moment of anxiety, she opened the drawer where her husband used to keep important papers. But this time, in the deepest drawer, she unexpectedly discovered an envelope sealed with red wax. On it was a familiar handwritten line. Open only after I die. To Tao and Quan. She collapsed, her hands trembling as she broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten will, signed by her personal lawyer. I, Min Tri, the founder of MQ Company and Quan's father, leave this will not to divide the assets, but to tell the final truth of my life. Mrs. Tao was silent. Her heart was pounding. This is not a will to divide assets. This is the final confession of a father, a husband, a man who traded the truth to build a castle on sand. Before he died, the father left behind a recording. The last words made the whole family collapse. Along with the will was a silver USB. Mrs. Tao turned it on. Mr. Min's voice rang out, weak, hoarse, but full of weight. If you are listening to this recording, perhaps I am no longer in this world. And perhaps everything that I tried to hide has begun to surface like an oil slick in a calm sea. You are not a good husband, not a model father, and certainly not a brave man. You have traded the truth to cling to a dream of a perfect family. You have exchanged a child, turned an angel into a sacrifice for fame and status. Vi, if you can hear me, please forgive me. I am not worthy of calling you that. The recording stopped. No one said a word. Only sobs broke out in the room. Quan slammed his hand against the wall, drawing blood. Why? Why did you hide this? Why did you let me love the person I was not allowed to love? No one could answer. Because the person who should have faced it had closed his eyes and entered death. Vi's true identity was revealed. And her biological mother, Mrs. DM, collapsed when she learned the truth. The old birth certificate. The old hospital medical records. An old photo taken hastily in the hospital hallway 25 years ago. All in the envelope with the will. Each one was like a knife, piercing Mrs. DM's heart. In the photo, she was lying on the hospital bed, her hand still bandaged. In the distance was the back of a familiar man. It was Mr. Min. At that time, I had just woken up from a difficult birth. I thought my child was sleeping in the intensive care unit. Who would have thought that when I woke up, he was no longer there? They said, my child died. I was so hurt that I went crazy. Now, all the pieces fit together. Vi, the daughter with Mrs. DM's smile, Mr. Kang's eyes, was the child who had been swapped, stolen from her real mother's arms. Mrs. DM could no longer cry. She collapsed, looking at her grown daughter with a bewildered look in her eyes like a child who had lost her mother. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you. The whole family was faced with a choice, expose the whole truth or continue to hide it to protect their reputation. Mr. Min's personal lawyer, who had been called, asked directly, do you want to publish this will? Mrs. Tao did not answer immediately. On the one hand, if it was published, the company's reputation would be severely affected. The founder's sinful past would be exposed. But on the other hand, if they continued to hide it, it would mean they were helping to deceive innocent people once again. She turned to look at Vi, her eyes were disoriented, her heart broken. Then she turned to Quan, her son was struggling to endure a truth that exceeded the limits of his heart. Mrs. Tao clenched her hands. An ounce. Enough. We can't live with masks anymore. The wedding was canceled, but what made it all the more painful was, love was buried alive before it could bloom. Vi folded the white wedding dress that had never been worn. The veil was now stained with tears. She stood by the sea, where the two had their first date, with Quan. If we weren't blood related, would you marry me? Vi asked, her voice as soft as the wind. Yes. 1,000 times. But now I can't. They didn't need to say another word. They just looked at each other silently, like two souls separated by the line of fate. A love that was once thought to be eternal. Now, it can only be kept in memory.